Okay.
Hello and welcome. I am Kerry Ann, and I am part of Equilibrium Collective, and I am with my co-host this evening. I'm with Sarah. Sarah and myself are going to be talking a little bit about some hauntings that we're familiar with. We would have seen them in the news, watched, films that are based upon them. And we're basically discussing it because we want to understand how hauntings come about. Not just that, but how it shapes us as a paranormal researcher in terms of how we then go on to look for ghosts or, experience paranormal activity. And also, not just that, but how we interpret that as well. The lessons that we have learned as paranormal researchers going forward based on these experiences that have happened, real experiences that have happened to other families, people that are interested in the paranormal, those that aren't, those are just subjected to it because of circumstance. So that is kind of what we're going to be talking about this evening. So the two hauntings that we are going to be discussing is the haunting of Amityville. So some will be familiar with that as the within the film Amityville Horror. And we'll be also discussing 30 East Drive in Pontefract. And again, there was a film made about this called When the Lights Are Out, or When the Lights Go Out. I am sorry if I'm wrong with that. So those are the two hauntings that we're going to talk about. And we're going to kind of understand the perspective from those experienced it firsthand by going over some of the details, some of the documentations, what might have been going on within that family, what might have been going on within the community, because it's important to understand that these types of hauntings, alleged hauntings, whatever you believe, aren't just within the home. It seeps into the community, it seeps into that community's history. It really takes hold of those that are in the vicinity. So that's what we're going to look at. We are, of course, going to be going over some details that you might already be familiar with. So, feel free to chat in the comments. If we've got something wrong, then join in. I do know that from my particular research that I've done this evening and the last couple of days, is that there are different accounts of the same thing. So there's some details that have changed from one to another. Hi, Jess. Welcome. So that is something that we're going to be discussing as well, how accounts of hauntings can differ, for which are meant to be the one of the same but then differ from person to person. So how do we interpret that as individuals, because we all take in information very differently, and it's something that's out of, it's subconscious, it's not something we can control. If you look at things like witness statements and stuff like that, and the way that certain instances are taking place and how they interview people, there's certain things that they need to do to make sure that that evidence isn't contaminated by other people's interpretation. And what I might see will be different for what Sarah might see, for example. There is this research, or there's an idea with the white gorilla where you watch the video and people are passing balls, and all you're focusing on is this ball going round and round, and what you don't see is a moon dance monkey going across right through the middle of a big white gorilla, obviously a man dressed up. So it's that kind of stuff that we're going to be looking at as well. So please share the love. Please make sure you share, which is what we're kind of doing when we keep looking at our phones. I'm really sorry, it is incredibly rude, but that is what we're doing at the moment. We're having a good share, making sure that we can get as many people as we can to join in, because at the end of the day, there's so much more than what we know. We only see a certain amount, so other information that comes in is just as valuable to us and viable. So we want to make sure that people are able to do that, and they only can do that if they have the access to it. So please share, have fun, enjoy it. I'm not sure if we're going to be oversharing. So Sarah, did you want to start off by discussing Amityville Horror, or Amityville Haunting, should I say, please?
Yes, so everybody knows about this one. There was a massive film made about it. There's been loads and loads of paranormal investigators actually go and visit the place, and there's been loads of theories as to what's happened and stuff. So where do you want to start?
Let's start from the very beginning. So, in terms of the family, who were the family that originally lived in the Amityville house?
So originally there was this was back in the 70s. There was a family of 7. There was mum, dad, and the kids. So they moved in. Shortly after they moved in, there was a bit of a dynamics situation.
Hmm, that is impeccable timing. Right, so I will cut in and I will start discussing with you the haunting that happened at 30 East Drive. Now, 30 East Drive is situated in Pontefract. Now, Pontefract is north of England. It's a quiet, rural area, from my understanding. The haunting took place similar to the Amityville horror. It did take place in the 60s, 70s when the Pritchard family moved into the to 30 East Drive. Straight away, they started experiencing poltergeist activity. Poltergeist activity in the fact that there was physical manifestations of spirit, movement, disruption, noise, so forth. So the family consists of 4 people. You had Dad Joe, you had Mum as well, you had Philip the son, and you had Diane as well. Philip and Diane. Philip, I think, was about 14, and Diane was 12. So the family moved in, and straight away they said they started getting activity. Now, I found most interesting about this is that with different accounts, some said that after a while they experienced it, some said it was straight away. But nevertheless, the activity did come thick and fast. The first documented paranormal activity was the son, Philip. He was the one that actually started encountering it first, and it was said that he was the one that first brought the conversation to the table. He was the first one to say, "This place is haunted." But he was allegedly with his grandma. They were in the front room, and about a foot from the ceiling, this cloud of fine dust started to manifest in the air. They weren't sure where it was coming from. There was no real source. It just seemed to appear from nowhere. It literally just seemed like it was being plucked out of air. So what happened next was they were trying to clear it up, and as they started to clear things up, they started to notice these pools of water starting to manifest on the floor, and no matter what they did, they couldn't do anything about it. So this was the first documented time that they were having paranormal activity. So, like I said, the accounts that I've gone through so far has basically said that Philip was the one that first brought this to the table. Now, there has been accounts after this, and I don't know what order it come because it's different from different people. But there was a time where the mum and dad was in bed, and they saw what they thought was a dark um, figure, and they said that he looked like a monk, and this is where the black monk of Pontefract comes from. This is where it comes from, and because of what they felt they saw, their interpretation of this manifestation. Now, there is said to be 2 male entities in this house. I'm not sure whether the black monk is one, and then the secondary one is Fred, which is who the family referred to as the ghost. They gave him a name. So I'm not sure if they're 2 or they're one of the same because that wasn't very clear. But this is what has been said. So as the poltergeist activity continued, Diane was subjected to being pulled up the stairs by her hair. She was said to have been standing at the foot of the stairs, and she started to feel really weird sensation, and she started to feel her hair being lifted and pulled up to the end. And with that, she was dragged up the stairs into her room. And when they come and obviously when the rest of the members of the family went to see Diane, they'd noticed that she had these fingerprints over her neck, and there was no way that they said this could happen. There was no other ways of this being able to happen. So this is something that they documented. Other than the those three main pivotal points in this, the other kind of manifestation of this activity was doors banging, cupboard doors banging, doors shutting, pictures having been slashed, like been slashed by knives, plants flying out their pots downstairs. There was green, like gunk, green liquid, like a I don't know, a thick consistency of green coming out the taps when the water had been shut off. And so there was lots and lots of paranormal activity. Now they did bring someone in to be able to do exorcisms and cleansing, but what actually happened was the ghost did not leave. In fact, one of the accounts that have been documented was that the aunt of the children, her sheepskin gloves come up into the air and started to orchestrate this Christian hymn that was meant to be casting him out of the location. So there was lots and lots of activity, and after they realised that these I knew you wouldn't give me. Yeah, come back online, Sarah. After they were experiencing this activity, and they realized that there was no way of getting rid of this, this is where they named him. Now they did get the press involved because they felt like they were at a loose end. The press started calling him Mr. Nobody. The family has said to have not liked to refer to him as a Mr. Nobody and gave him the name Fred to normalize it so that, it become less of a thing and more of an everyday occurrence. And apparently he was quite playful and he wasn't always aggressive. And there was times that he played tricks and was, done not so nasty things. There is evidence to say that the family did come away with scratches and bruises in terms of accounts, I say, with evidence. But the other side of this is he did eventually he did physically attack Diane. And not just that, but it was said to have been him. Not just that, but apparently the father, Joe, was locked in a his coal house. It's like a little bit of a room that's kind of cut off, and he was locked in there, and he said like a dark figure was in there with him. But other than that, see, that's the thing. When I looked at this, they said that he didn't really give an account of anything. Like he didn't talk about it, whether he went through. He just didn't want to talk about. But as I went through it, it actually said that he felt that there was a black figure that was coming towards him. So again, it was a little bit like Chinese whispers, trying to find what's going on. So that was a haunting. That is what happened. Sadly, Joe did pass away in the house, in the bathtub. In some instances, I read that it was a heart attack. Another one was that he had died of a hemorrhage. So there was something that went on with him that killed him instantly in the house. They lasted 5 years in that house, and then they moved out. And then from then, it remained empty. Same as the Amityville Horror in terms of the era. The people that own it now have now basically rent it out as a haunted location to stay in. So with that being said, I want to discuss what's happened next. So from the little I knew, Amityville haunting was Sarah's bag, but from the little I know, that after this haunting happened and take place in Amityville house, once the family moved out, there wasn't actually any activity being recorded. In fact, it's lived in now as a family home, and it has been ever since. So since that has happened, very little has gone on since. Now, obviously, the Warrens went into the Amityville home, and they did say that they found entities in there. You have the photograph of the young boy in there, the family that were murdered. I know that there was a secondary family that moved in after the first one, but I'm not too sure. Again, this was Sarah's bag. I'm not too sure what really happened after that. But what is the truth of it is that since then, there's not been no hauntings that have been recorded since. So this is where I kind of wanted to draw upon, obviously with Sarah, draw upon how we affect locations in terms of how we research, how we look into, how we develop our picture of who we've got. What happens when we give this ghost an entity, what an identity? What happens? Is there even a ghost there for an entity to be an identity to be given? What is going on in terms of haunts? So with the 30 East Drive, it was a really interesting case. I wasn't researching in terms of whether it was fake, whether it was true, what happened, none of those kind of things. That's not what I was interested in. What I was interested in was what is the fundamentals of this? What are the factors of this haunt. So from my understanding is that you have a key holder, and this key holder meets you and she will tell you whether what kind of has gone on that day, if she's heard anything, if anything's happened, if it hasn't. She's also known to be interviewed as well, and she'll tell you stories. And she's a neighbour, this lady. But other than that, I didn't see very much other than I know that she does give interviews and she does tell people what can happen and what possibly to expect. And with that, I draw upon the suggestion theory, the theory of being if something is suggested, then you're more likely to be more likely to be prone to find it. If you know if someone's telling you it's there, then you're more likely to then find that. Um, so we have that. We have the suggestion theory. But as you enter the location, there is a room, and in this room, there's photographs of previous evidence. There's photographs um, of people that have stayed there. There's recordings of evidence in there. There's newspaper cuttings. There's a film advertisement in there as well. So straight away you're faced with the possible, the collective memory of activity. You have someone's bit. They're being slowly but surely, brick by brick. There is a development there of an identity of a being. And if you're familiar, and I've spoken about it before, but if you're familiar with the Phillips experiment, then you'll know yourself that there is the possibility of being able to manifest energy, that you manifest the spirit. If you give it enough energy, enough time, and enough, history, name, location, what happened, that happens. So when you look at for example, 30 East Drive, and you look at the history behind it, so the I tried to trace where these haunts come from, like the Enfield haunting. Where does this entity, if it, where does it come from? Because it's got to come from somewhere, right? So with 30 East Drive, it is said that it's built at the end of the hill, and at this hill there used to be gallows, and a black monk that's black monk, a priest or a monk, who is meant to be the black monk, was executed for killing some children and hurting them. So they have that. However, other research I've conducted says that there's no monks living in that area. So I'm not sure where but how real that is. Um, Also, it is built on a battleground as well. So there's that. And also you have a death, quite a significant death. And when you look at that, like for example, stone tape theory, when something with high significance happens, it leaves a footprint. It does leave a footprint behind. So you have that. Plus, if you think about stone tape theory, you have a location that is said to be very haunted. It's going to cause some great distress to the family that are living there. That within itself is a manifestation of energy, which can leave a footprint behind. So the banging, the slamming doors, it's all high energy, that could possibly leave an imprint behind. Now, I'm not saying this ghost doesn't exist. I'm not saying that it's not real or true. But what I'm saying is, like, let's look at how these hauntings are developed and how they are built into one picture. Who validates this information, for example? Where have we got proof that there was a black monk there? Or where have we got proof of Fred? other than mediums, which I don't discredit mediums because I myself am, but at the same time, mediums use intuition and they make sense of what they're being shown, and it's not always right. You get no's sometimes, not always yeses, and you have to go back and you have to ask and you have to get it right. But if you haven't got someone there to be able to go, yeah, that's right, no, that's wrong, how are you supposed to go back and ask? And who are you asking? Other mediums that have been there to say that they've experienced that thing, or they'll tell you, yeah, there's Fred there. So I am getting to the point where I'm wondering, how are we learning as paranormal researchers from these types of locations? How are we developing our equipment toolkit, not just our physical scientific kit, but also our toolkit of abilities, our understanding of even just this location. If you look at it at a societal level, then you have a community that is aware of this haunting. It was publicly known, and the stories are quite prevalent within that community. You have businesses that are linked to it also and have been throughout the years. You have the perpetuated stories that are now twisted and turned, because when you look at it and you research, look, I ask you, look for yourself. When you go to these researches, there's always a different side to what happened, and again, this is, where are these accounts coming from? Because from my understanding, the family that were involved haven't come forward with much. Now, I know the film was, if my research is correct, the film was developed by the nephew, a very loose nephew, like hi Luna, a very loose connection there by marriage. He was the director, and it was his family stories, and his mum used to go over to the house and stuff like that. So he got the stories not first hand, he got them second hand, and then with that he then interviewed the family. But no one's come out since the actual film come out itself. um and what does the film do with our susceptibility? Now, when you go into the location, you have obviously this room, and there is signs all over the place in there to say not to use wee balls and not to, do them kind of things. But when you go onto YouTube and even me myself, when I was looking for research, when I was looking at other videos, there are people doing Ouija boards in this location. There is pentacles being drawn, and I wear one for protection, but this is what, and then black candles. So there is this undercurrent, this undertone of darkness that's kind of underpinning this haunt, this alleged haunt. Um, and there's loads of research. But then when we look at the evidence that gathered, I mean, for example, we have peripheral vision, and when we are in dark locations, we have low color intake. We don't observe color very well, but what we can do is see movement very, very well. In fact, it heightens. It gets better in dark. Movement gets better in dark. And I suppose we can really bring this back to our primitive kind of state, our caveman type state. But what also happens is we go into hyper vigilance as well. So what we do is all our senses then heighten. So when we are in a location that has been repeatedly being the hauntings there. We have two resident haunts that we know about. There's also alleged a haunting of a girl. Now, this room with the girl, there is the crying girl photo in there, which obviously we know the negative connotations with that. So we have this room that has the crying girl in it, which is, if you're very superstitious or you are interested in superstition and folklore, then you'll know very well the story of the crying children. So you go into a room where the child is meant to be, and there's toys in there, and there's this picture in there. So straight away, you're aware. You're aware, and like Sarah said, you're projecting intention. Hi Jess, thank you for joining us. Oh no, you're already here. Sorry. Welcome. So what you're doing room by room is you're being geared up because of your surroundings. you're hyper vigilant, you're hiya, nice to see you. So you become hyper vigilant of what's around you. You are in your fight or flight kind of sensation, so you're aware of that. You are surrounded by memorabilia from other paranormal investigators. Now, you as a paranormal investigator, if you have another paranormal investigator informing you about information, you're instantly going to give that some weight, because they are one of you. You are one of them. It's an us and them. You know, you're talking to a reasonable investigator that you may have had the researching with before or gone investigations before. So if this person is coming to you with their evidence, their interpretation of their evidence, then you're more likely to suggestion theory. Be, this is what's going on. This is what I'm going to experience. I'm ready for this. I'm going. And then you've got all these photos of activity as well, and you've got the documentation not only within the kind of community, but you've also got it within the media. So you have your newspaper edition, like snippets on the wall, and you have the memorabilia from the film. So you're surrounded by it constantly. Other investigators that go in have said that they are aware of other people and other investigators doing things they probably shouldn't. Like I said, with the dark undertones. Obviously, each their own. And this is the thing about research: we all have our own way of doing it. There are people that is their way of researching. So how does that? When you think about stone tape again, stone tape theory, how is that impacting the location? How is that? Are we creating a memory by the research that we're doing? It's what are we learning from this? And also, now I'm a believer in the paranormal, and I am a believer in spirits. This location is open every day of the week, and you have got people coming in with what are they bringing with them, or how are they opening up, or how are they shutting down, or what are they opening while they're there, and you are bringing them, and you're expecting these once people to continually perform as well. There's this other side of things with this location. So I I'm interested. My point and my flow of this conversation, obviously minus Sarah due to technical issues, is that we have one location which is as haunted as the other. The same era, family involved, and obviously one was horrifically ended, and the other family had, after losing one family member, moved out. But when there was this no more talk of the paranormal, when that stopped, when there was no researchers in there looking for ghosts, when there was no mediums in there perpetuating the story of the ones that are, the ones that are allegedly to be there, there was no paranormal to find. There has been no alleged activity in them locations since. So my argument as a researcher is the paranormal is only there when we seek it. And we need to be aware of what impact we have when we're researching it, because we may not even be, what was once there may no longer be the only thing that's there. What's there now is so much more. So that is kind of where I'm going. It was, obviously, I've spoken for about half hour. I would love to know your thoughts of the things we've spoken about. What haunting have you know of that has had an entity have an identity? For example, the Enfield haunting. You had Bill Wilkes. And he was given a backstory. They were able to trace him back, and they were able to, kind of develop this ghost, like, again, like the Phillips experiment. And I think these things are really important for us, that when we go and research these locations, that we are aware of what is going on in the community. What is their memory of this? What are they projecting onto this location? What are like impressions of what's happening in these places? And where have them impressions come from? Is it the media? Is it other paranormal investigators that have already been? Is it the person that's living next door that's telling us these things are happening? And we are going in there expecting for it, so therefore we see it. We have audio and visual pareidolia, where the brain seeks familiar in things that aren't. So we are aware that we will see things in things, we will see faces. We want to see faces in things. We want to recognize things. So we will, the brain does it. It's something we cannot control. So we have that, but we also have audio pareidolia, where we will listen to unfamiliar sounds like static radio, FM, AM frequencies, and we will listen for and make sense of a word that may not even be there. And everyone will hear that differently. And it will take one person to say, that said this. And when they hear it back, they'll be like, yeah, that's it. We have this suggestion when you look at paranormal shows now, and they have an EVP, and they write up on the screen what it says. You might not have heard that the first time around, but now you do. There's undoubtedly that's it. And this is the problem that we have, especially when we live in a world or live in a time where we are getting smaller because of social media and because of the amount of paranormal research saturated. There is so much of us. So yeah, be careful what you wish for, Sarah says. Sarah, my co-host that was meant to be with me this evening, who has decided to have a power cut. I swear she does it herself. Talk about intention. There's your intention. So I'm gonna solo tonight. So thank you for everyone that's listening. But yeah, please join in. Tell me about if you've had an experience, please feel free to, or your understanding or what you think. I would love to hear it. I'd love, love, love to hear it. So the only other thing I will say, the sadness about this location is the dad Joe that had passed away quite abruptly in the bathtub. And from the reading, he didn't have the nicest or the easiest of life, and I feel like there is a chance that he could be trapped in that location, continuously knocking or speaking, or no peace, no rest. And I think that sometimes we build a cage in these places, and I say that really loosely because I am aware of the other location that's referred to that, but I do feel like sometimes we build something and project and make and then trap and then that's it. And there should be more than that. So I'm not saying don't go. It is really expensive. I say really expensive. Sorry, guys. It's about £80, I think, or £75 is the cheapest that I found per person to spend the night there. It is actually advertised as a B&B. It is really dated, still in the 70s, still got that era about it. And I suppose if you are interested in the paranormal, I'm not saying don't go, check it out, see what you think, tell me. I would love to know how you think, or what you experienced, and is there a black monk there? Is there, but there's always, isn't there, blue lady, black monk, lady of the lake, the hiker. I feel like we give these entities, or we give an identity to something that isn't quite an entity, and then all of a sudden we have this. I feel like sometimes we do the reverse stone tape theory. We create the memory that produces the loop rather than the loop that kind of projects the memory. I do feel like that. But yeah, that's all I've got to say. It's been fun. Thank you so much for everyone that's watched. I really have enjoyed talking to you and talk about my interpretation of what a haunting is, and what goes on, and how we as researchers can really take these tools and like level up, guys, level up. Take a look at what's going on in the community. If you're really researching a location, if you're looking for a case study, this is perfect. Look what's going on in the community. Look at the collective memory. Look at the social identity. Have a look at what's going on and how they have created this memory, or how they have created this identity based on these superstitions, or this their story that's kind of you know created somewhat of a revenue for the location, but for the area. But not just that, but notoriety within the paranormal field. This is meant to be arguably UK's most active. Yeah, Jess, woman in white. That's me. Pasty over here. But yeah, notoriety and the fact that this is meant to be the UK's most haunted location with the most active poltergeist. So there's notoriety there. There is books, there are films, there are social media followings. How are we developing this? How? Um, so this must not be fun for listening to a one-side conversation. However, I love the fact that you've stayed and that you've chatted with me. I love that. Thank you so much. So obviously this will be the first of hopefully many. Sarah will be joining me next time. We're of course going to be talking about lots of different things, but the paranormal is something that I really am fascinated with. I love learning about new locations. I love learning about new ways of working. I love learning about why we do what we do. That's the most important thing. Why do we respond to the things that we do? Now, I need to say that I am a believer. I'm not a disbeliever. The problem is I started studying psychology, so I always have this one side of me that's like, but what about this and what about this, and yeah, so it's not great, but thank you so much. If you can, please give Equilibrium Collective a follow on YouTube. Please give Equilibrium Paranormal UK a like on on my Facebook page. We also have a private group called Echo, eq.co, Echo. So feel free to add yourself to that. We are always looking to build our team, and that is literally people that are interested in paranormal that would like to join us and have fun and talk about ghosts and research stuff and just be really geeky and nerdy with some equipment. So yeah, so thank you so much for everyone that joined me. I really love that I've been able to speak to you, and yeah, please make sure you follow us, and hopefully next time I'll be joined properly with Sarah. I'm going to say good night. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.